Tale of the Brave, a Big Golden Book. Illustrated by Tommy Stubbs. It was a busy and bustling day at the clay pits on the island of Sodor. Thomas was there helping out while a bridge on his branch line was being repaired. He liked working at the clay pits, but those troublesome engines, Bill and Ben, kept playing tricks on him. There was no time for tricks that day, though. A friendly engine named Timothy warned everybody that rain may be coming, and if it starts to rain, these clay wells will get really unstable. We'd best be careful. That afternoon, dark clouds filled the sky and cold rain started to fall. As Thomas cautiously rolled down some slippery tracks, the clay walls next to him began to drip and ooze. To his surprise, he saw strange marks under the sliding mud. They looked like giant footprints. But what kind of animal has that big feet? Wondered Thomas. Watch out! Bill and Ben shouted. Before Thomas could get a good look at the footprints, the troublesome engines pushed him safely out of the way of a giant, gooey landslide. The next morning, Sir Topham had addressed the engines at the shunting yards. Bill and Ben are best known for playing tricks on other engines, but by rescuing Thomas from yesterday's landslide, they've proven that they are really useful engines. All the engines peeped happily, then rolled off to work, but Thomas couldn't stop thinking about the footprints. Thomas returned to the clay pits, but he couldn't see the footprints. The tracks were closed and covered with mud. Later at Brendam Docks, Thomas told Percy about the footprints. I don't know what could have made them. They were bigger than any animal in Sodor. Do you mean they were from a monster? Percy wheezed. Don't be silly, Percy. There's no such thing as monsters. For the rest of the day, Percy couldn't stop thinking about monsters. He didn't want to see anything scary, but later, as he came to the top of a hill, he did see a strange shape in the distance. What's that? Percy puffed. I hope it's not a monster. Percy reversed and raced backwards all the way to the docks. It's the monster from the clay pits, Percy whistled as he barreled into the docks. Everybody watched as something rumbled down the rails. That'd be no monster, Salty Puff. That'd be an engine. I don't usually get mistaken for a monster, the big engine tooted. Mind you, they do call me Gator. It seems they think my long water tanks make me look like an alligator. Percy felt very silly for thinking the new engine was a monster. Everywhere Percy went that night, he thought he saw strange creatures. Old trees and haystacks became monsters with clutching claws. Fluttering laundry on clotheslines looked like ghosts. Percy was so scared he didn't even deliver the mail. He asked Thomas to pull the mail trucks. Thomas agreed to do it for one night. The next morning, Thomas heard that the bridge on his branch line was open again. He was happy to go back to his usual work. But James was unhappy. Sir Topham had asked him to pick up a load of scrap metal. It's not fair, James buzzed. Thomas gets to pull coaches, and a fine engine like myself is sent to haul junk. As James rolled in a grumpy mood, he saw Percy. Hello, scaredy engine, he puffed. Seen any monsters lately? You can tease if you want, Percy peeped. But Thomas saw giant footprints at the clay pits. There must be a monster in Sodor. Puffin' nonsense, James remarked as he rolled into the scrapyard. James was busy thinking about monsters when he turned the corner into the scrapyard and came face to face with jagged teeth and crooked claws. No, James peeped. Help! Hello, mate, Reg the scrap cane puffed. Looks like that scrap gave you a fright. James realized it was only a pile of old gears and broken metal in front of him. I'm not afraid of some broken old machines, he puffed. Down at the docks, Percy was pleasantly surprised to find Gator waiting in a siding. What are you doing here? Percy asked. I am heading to a new job, Gator puffed. Unfortunately, my ship has been delayed. I have to wait until a new one can be found. At least you don't have to worry about sea monsters, Percy peeped. For all I know, sea monsters would be worried about me, Gator puffed with a laugh. Wow, Percy peeped. I wish I were as brave as you. Being brave is not the same as feeling scared, Percy. Being brave is what you do when you feel scared. You might be braver than you think. Inspired by Gator's words, Percy decided to be brave and pull the mail train all by himself that night. His boiler bubbled boldly as he shoved across the countryside. Nothing scared him. Not the fluttering laundry, not the old garden trees. Gator's right, he tooted. I can be brave. Grumpy James was not nearly as happy. He needed to haul the flying kipper, which was full of fresh fish. As he rounded a bend in the woods, he saw a large, shadowy shape. He didn't realize it was only Gator. His whistle screamed. James raced. He was so frightened that he missed a red signal and jumped off the rails into a pond. James was very embarrassed that Rocky had to hoist him out of the pond. When the other engines saw him at Knapford Junction, they had a good laugh. You were meant to deliver the fish, Henry puffed, not to throw them back in the water. James didn't like the jokes one bit. He showed everybody that Percy was the real scaredy engine, not him. That night, as Percy was delivering the mail, he saw something unusual on the tracks, something big. This was definitely wasn't a haystack or a funny-looking engine. It groaned and flashed its big teeth in the moonlight. Percy didn't want to be brave anymore. He dropped his mail trucks and raced to the shed as fast as his little wheels would carry him. The monster, Percy whistled as he rolled to the sheds. I really saw it. None of the other engines believed him. You probably saw another haystack, James mocked. Percy looked desperate to Thomas. Tell them there really are monsters on Sodor. Tell them about the footprints you saw. I don't know what I saw, Thomas peeped, but I don't think it was a monster. There's no such things as monsters, steamed Henry. Never was and never will be. Admit it, Percy, you're just a scaredy engine, James peeped. But, James, you got a fright when you saw Gator, Percy puffed. No, I didn't, James steamed. I just missed a signal in the dark. He looked at the other engines. I wasn't scared, like Percy. Early the next morning, Percy steamed away from the sheds to find his mail trucks. On the way, he saw Gator and asked him to come along. You'll know what to do if you see any monsters. Monsters, Gator puffed with a laugh. You are a very funny little engine. Well, it's good to have a friend on the island, Percy peeped. I'm glad you're not going away. But I am. My ship is here. I leave tonight. Percy couldn't believe it. Later that morning, Thomas saw James with a truck full of scrap. It was at the turn where Percy had seen the monster. James, Thomas tooted, you made a monster out of scrap metal to give Percy a fright. It was only a little joke, James replied. Not to Percy. You need to find him and tell him what you did, and apologize. The two engines split up to find Percy. Thomas found Percy at Knapford Station. He tried to tell him about James's prank, but Percy wouldn't listen. I thought you were my friend, Percy peeped. When you told me about the footprints, I believed you. And now I told you about the monster, and you should believe me. Maybe I should go far away, like Gator. Percy puffed in a huff. Percy raced down to the docks and told Cranky to hoist him onto Gator's ship. Are you sure Sir Topham Hatt wants you to be on the ship? The big crane asked. Yes, Percy peeped. I'm going to work far away, like Gator. Percy was loaded onto the deck of the ship. It wasn't long before Gator was lowered next to him. I'm going to work in a faraway land, Percy puffed. I'll show everyone how brave I am. Gator thought for a moment. But running away from your problems is not brave, Percy. Thomas tugged across Sodor looking for Percy. But when he heard a distant ship blow its horn, a terrible thought flew into his funnel. Oh no, Thomas peeped. I know where Percy is going. Gator's ship was leaving when Thomas reached the docks. Cranky, he whistled. You have to stop that ship. It's an emergency. Cranky swung his hook and caught the ship's rail. His heavy chain rattled and strained as the great boat tried to pull away. The force was too great for Cranky. He started to tip over. Creak! Workmen on the ship tried to knock the hook loose with a sledgehammer. Luckily, the captain was able to stop the ship before Cranky was pulled off the docks. Percy, come down, Thomas whistled. You can't leave. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. Gator peered over the railing of the ship. Percy's not here. Percy, Cranky groaned. I unloaded him half an hour ago. Thomas could only think of one place where Percy might go. Night was falling as Percy quietly rolled through the clay pits. He stopped when he reached the warning sign. If I can find the footprints, it will prove the monster is real, he thought. Then everyone will know how brave I am. At that moment, James rolled up. He started to apologize, but Percy interrupted him. I'm braver than you'll ever be, Percy puffed. James didn't like Percy's attitude. If you're so brave, why don't you stop here at the danger signs? Being brave doesn't mean not being careful, Percy peeped. That's just what I thought a scaredy engine would say, puffed James as he pushed past Percy and the signs. He rolled into the narrow gorge. The cliff walls were still drippy and loose from the landslide. Oh, monster, James cried. Come out, wherever you are. Suddenly, James saw something in the moonlight. It had claws and teeth. The monster, wheezed James. He tried to back up, but the walls began to rumble and tumble. It's another landslide, Percy peeped. You have to go forward, James. The little green engine raced ahead to push James out of the way. Rocks hit Percy and mud slid into his cab, and the big monster landed right in front of him. That was when Percy made a discovery. It wasn't a monster. It was some sort of rock. The next day, Percy went to the steamworks for a good cleaning. He had lots of mud in his funnel and gears. While he was there, James and Thomas visited and apologized. I hope we're still friends, Thomas peeped. Of course we are, Percy replied. We are all friends. All three engines wheezed and whistled with joy. That afternoon, Thomas carried a group of scientists to the clay pits. They were amazed by what Percy had found in the mud. It's a dinosaur fossil, one scientist exclaimed to Thomas. Fossils are what we call bones that have been in the ground for millions of years. So the monster was really a dinosaur from a long, long time ago? Thomas peeped in amazement. He He couldn't wait to tell Percy. Soon the fossils were put on display in Knapford Town Square. Excited families and curious engineers came from all over the island to see them. A perfect specimen of a Megalosaurus, the Earl of Sodor exclaimed. How marvelous! Sir Topham Hatt addressed the crowd. Today was made possible by a very special engine. Percy is not only a really useful fossil hunter, but also one of the bravest engines on Sodor. The people clapped and cheered, and the engines blew their whistles, but Percy was nowhere to be seen. Percy was at Brendam Dock, saying goodbye to Gator. Gator's ship was ready to depart again. As it steamed into the distance, Thomas and James pulled up alongside Percy. I guess you have to be brave to say goodbye sometimes. Too, Percy peeped. Did Gator say that? Thomas asked. No, but he did say something elsewise, Percy puffed, and his two friends rolled in closer to hear. He said not to let James near any ponds or fish again. Even James thought this was a funny joke. The three friends giggled and whistled with joy. The end. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned for some Tale of the Brave Wooden Railway reviews, and check out my series, Tales and Riddles. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and thanks for watching. See ya, and thanks for stopping by. And also, don't forget, Tale of the Brave comes out DVD very soon.